Thank you. First of all, I move a lot, so this is sitting here will keep me from twitching. And so I think for me, the first kind of thing just to kind of understand more so what you might all be looking at too, because we do have a variety of services within the community. And so I can tell you those, but for me it's better to kind of also have ideas about what you're looking for to be able to stay in Fairbanks, or to at least extend your time living in Fairbanks, because that becomes the real question with many of us. Like, are we going to stay here for winter after winter? Because it seems to be that's always our, the light's gone, I got to get out of here is what you always hear. But many of us, that's an adaptation that many of us have made, especially if at this age, and we've done it for so long. But so those are the kind of things I would like to kind of understand initially with you is, what you're hoping to find, maybe. So if it's because most of my years have been dealing with or working with individuals, usually the children, which a few of you are here with me, which I appreciate, and of individuals that were in the Pioneer Home, or when I was at FRA that were doing adult daycare, respite care, senior services. And in rural Alaska, where I worked and was actually out there in fisheries, and then met my husband, and we decided to stay there because his job was there, and it was, so for me it was kind of like, okay, let's see if I can find a job here, and the senior center job came open. And the senior center was primarily servicing or providing services to non-English speaking individuals, and we provided meals, we provided all of the information to get people registered for services and that. And the majority of those individuals were survivors of the 1919 flu as children. And so that opened a whole other world. And I've spent most of my working life as a young person too, working in services that were providing care to either the elderly or in hospital. And it was just summer jobs or working during my high school years and then on through college. And so it was, it kind of gave me a whole different depth of what people's needs were and being able to assist people in finding the help that they needed. So if any of you want to just pop out with like what you're looking for. Are you looking for you want to move out of your house, you want to, there's a whole lot of options if you're going with an organized situation, but Fairbanks has created their own. There are a few places here in town that are ones that just a group of other all elders that kind of knew each other have moved into condominiums that are private. But there's a whole bunch of them in the same building able to kind of watch after each other and help kind of make sure that if things are dangerous or whatever, they're able to actually provide, the help to one another. So there are a few of those places. And then it goes back to what your available income comes, that is a key piece for all of us. So whether or not you'd be able to live in certain locations. One of the things that I will tell you right now is that when I retired out of the Pioneer Home, I did a temporary fill-in at Raven Landing as the administrator there for like a 6 or 7 month period. And I'm now on their board, just so you know that, just as a, but it's given me another insight for a different service that is available to the community. and to a lot of individuals that are very, happy to be there and happy to be together with their friends. So you want to give me some hints on what you're looking for?
Maybe you could share places in Fairbanks that have different levels of care, level 1, 2, 3 care.
That I can do. Some of the other options, or if people are considering, so Raven Landing is definitely one of the ones that we have that is and it has a considerable rent, but it also allows people to be out of their home, no longer worrying. And it's given me a lot of insight speaking with and spending time there with so many of the residents as to how they felt, and this is going to be one in my head, when you start downsizing, downsizing your collections or just even your books or, all of that, when you start reducing, trying to reduce what you own so that you are not labored by it, or, you're not carrying that worry. What am I going to do with this? Or, and there have been some parents that are like, they can take care of it. Or some sisters that say to their sister, she can take care of it. She's a lot younger. But it is kind of looking at that. And it's been interesting talking to people at Raven as to how that has felt, because that's something I will be dealing with. And so I think that's something, that we all, and a lot of people, it's like, well, my family can deal with it. But the other things, one of the other big suggestions and levels of care and what is available, but also part of that is knowing, where an individual is going to be, what kind of care it's going to be, and to what depth the care is. But also, if the person or any of us are cognitive enough, before that time comes, make your own decision. Don't leave that to someone else. That really is one of the things that I have seen through the years that is so difficult for the children, and for, because the parent they don't want to go. And then there you are, and you're the child, the adult child, the elderly child, trying to deal with how you're going to make it work for mom or dad in a facility. And so be it a small facility, or be it the Pioneer Home, be it our new place here in town, Timber Creek, you have to really think about how that is going to, what that is going to affect in your life still, because many of you look very young, that you will possibly still have your parents and you are going to have to make those decisions, or making those decisions ahead of time so that you actually have had that discussion. And I was blessed with a grandma that was, died at 98, but she made those choices. And it was, she was Canadian, lived in a rural area of Canada, but moved into town, and she lived on the farm and the farm was not like in open fields and stuff, it was a bush farm. And so she made those decisions, and she has always been in my head about how she took that pressure off of her daughters. And and she made good choices, and she rolled right along. So I just can't say that enough. And it's to tell people to kind of pull it together and make your own decisions, and then make it known to your children, Or, you know, and if you don't have kids, then and you have a niece or you have some other family member, or you decide that you're going to have someone, a friend is willing to, then you need to really take that care, because it is so hard when people don't make those decisions ahead of time. And so just even doing the research now, visiting the facilities that are available within our community, or if you decide, because there are times many people will decide that, okay, we're going to move to Arizona in the winter, and then they decide, oh, it's so cold, I don't want to go back, and I'm not going back till June now. I'm not, you know, and I'm leaving in September. So, I mean, the decisions about where you're going to end up, you know, if that's part of where your world is at, then trying to figure that part out. And especially when it comes to cost of care in, you know, you're going to find generally a lower cost of care in a lot of different states. So if you have a state in the, you know, but you have to then consider, are all my friends not going to be able to contact, you know, have any contact?
A question I would have is, what are maybe some of the unknown criteria that really ought to be looked at in evaluating a stay?
So I would look at, so we'll look at, like, if you're looking at levels of care, and if you're looking at individuals going into an assisted living home. We have many private assisted living homes here in this community, but the primary ones are the Pioneer Home, and then our new one, which is Timber Creek. Timber Creek is, you know, they're new, they're coming on, you know, and I went and visited. It's beautiful. And so, but they're getting their staffing up and everything, and they, and what I was told is that it's locally owned is what they're stating, but they're also, the other thing is that they are being run by another corporation to get them going. So the corporation is Mosaic, which I think is a national-wide assisted living, or may even be for nursing homes, and they are pulling that together, and they said that within the next 2 years it will. That's their expectation. That's what I was told in my, you know, walkabout with them. So, and they said they are about half full right now. They are not set up for people with dementia. And I think dementia is something that we all concern ourselves with, or if you don't, then hallelujah for you. But having worked with my primary years has always been working with people with dementia, and that has been something I have loved doing and enjoyed, and was able to, you know, assist a lot of times with staff, with people that did have, you know, advanced dementia and aggressive dementia or happy dementia. And, you know, but we don't get to pick that. It just happens as it does. And so so there's two major places within our community that can manage that. There are private assisted living homes that will do that. And the range of pay that you're going to pay, that is, if you're looking just at the finances, is between $8,000 to $16,000 is what I understand. Per month. Yeah, and yes.
If you still wanted to hear about what we're hoping to learn, I think for me, I just want to become knowledgeable about what the options even are.
Correct.
In the Fairbanks area. I mean, everyone's heard of the Pioneer Home and Raven Landing and now the Timber Creek, but I haven't really heard of anything else, and I just would like to know what the range of options is.
The range, as I would see it, is it still goes back to, there are, depending upon your income, because the other ones that are available are generally lower income. So we have 3 ones that are funded, partially funded, and except primarily the individuals there are people with a lower income. And I don't have that income level in my head anymore, but it is through the housing development group. So it's age, and you might know better what, the one sitting beside you might know better what the costs would be.
Yeah, no, sorry. I just know the apartment complex, like Gold North Towers and Manor Apartments, and there are some that are publicly funded and then some that are private.
Correct.
That get subsidized.
Right. And the ones, because also North Pole has a little group of them too. And so those would be ones that you could consider depending upon your income. And people are very happy and comfortable there from the individuals that I have met. And so that is, you're paying for the apartment, you're paying for, living there. So there's who else has them is there's senior housing that's next to the senior center, but that is privately. That's it has a board, it's a small group, it has, I think, about 15 apartments in it, I think. And that's what happens in those is you have to be relatively independent in any of those. So if you can get services that will be your care services through different agencies. And so you would be able to do, if you needed someone to do housekeeping, the senior center carries a lot of that. One of the better people that would be able to give you all of those details is going to be Beth Gray, who was here this past one, through the ADRC. And she knows, because that's what her job is now, and we're lucky we have that position here now, because that position for Fairbanks was in Kenai for the past 10 years. And so we finally were able, and it was ridiculous that we did not have it up here, but we didn't have an independent group that wasn't, because we're a small community and we were all doing each other's service, helping with each other's services. And so that made it a little bit more challenging to be able to get that grant, but it happened. And I'm so happy, and I've met Beth, and she is incredibly knowledgeable and very helpful. And she manages all of the grants for getting people services and care. So she is able to do those, and it goes back to income. So if someone's carrying that, and if you haven't gone through and found your someone to help do your will or your estate to know what your assets are, that is another really key piece in finding out what level of housing you would be able to qualify for.
Has that changed significantly? So, you years and years ago you used to hear about divesting yourself of assets or whatever, and needing to do it 5 years before you supposedly needed a nursing home or something like that, and then maybe you would be eligible for some assistance. Otherwise, back in those days, you were allowed a very minimal monthly amount that you could have, and any of your other resources had to go towards either Denali Center or Pioneer Home or wherever you might be, kind of thing. And last time I pulled up the law and looked at it, it looked much more complicated than I remembered, and so I didn't know if there were big changes or...
I don't know that it's been big changes, but it's been focused changes on a lot of it, because even looking at and not trying to get political, but looking at where we're at in our government system, I'm trying to think of this politely. It's not positive we're screwed, in essence. Sorry. I don't know. With where we're at for services, and because, who's going to want to go to the Pioneer homes when you go look at this other place and it's all lovely and we haven't had, and it breaks my heart because we put so much energy and effort into trying to keep up old buildings. We had old buildings. I mean, Pioneer Home opened in '67, the month before the flood. And we flooded, you know, but I mean, those kind of things, but I mean, just carpet, just management of you know, your walls, you know, all of the air vents, the heating, you know, just keeping up those kind of things in any of our facilities. I mean, and especially when you are being backed, you know, when you're the state. And we have all been very proud, as I have been. I mean, I moved into the state in 1978, and I have been so proud of living here and of what services we've been able to actually provide to people, and not I mean, not overly generous. I mean, we have helped people to be able to find services and to be able to qualify for services. So for those kind of things, it is difficult. So you really need to kind of look at your income, and then you really need to go and start deciding how and where, if you're going to stay here, what you want to do. You know, and so there are assisted living homes. And Raven Landing, I mean, it is a nonprofit, and we have, and many of you probably know Karen Parr, and I don't know if you do know Karen Parr, but Karen Parr roped me into it. And Karen Parr can talk you into those kind of things. But when they were building that facility, the people, it was all independent people that were hooked into the idea, and she wanted to know what we were paying at the Pioneer Home. I gave her job descriptions. We went through, she'd send different people to kind of figure out the kitchen thing, to all sorts of things, so that they could create this facility that has 101 apartments, basically. And it is, and it's been interesting to talk to people there, because this is one, and they have had to it has gone up in price, but a 1-bedroom is $2,550 a month. That gives you a covered parking. It gives you all utilities, appliances, a washer dryer hookup in the apartment, common laundry room if you don't want one in there. You have local phone service, you have wireless internet, you have 5 meals a week, and she is a chef, and she is darn good cook. Try the liver and onions. And they do accommodate meals that are for people that have a variety, even vegan. So they will do that. Light housekeeping, 2 times a month. I'm like, oh, wouldn't that be nice? So, and that the carports do have plug-ins, and they have unheated storage. Everybody gets kind of an outside little closet that locks up. And there's maintenance of the building grounds, and there's a security intercom at the residential building in the residence. So, and those have, they're actually doing an open house tomorrow night if anybody's interested in going and taking a walk about. They'll show you what the apartments look like. They have 1-bedroom, they have a studio, 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, and the 2-bedroom has, anybody that you're going to put 2 people in there, it's another $465, but they'll tell you all the prices. They're open about all of that. And so, you know, what's been interesting for me is and we have garden area, so people can, you know, do flowers still, and if you look at our flowers, those are all done by residents. And we do have someone that mows. But so that's for those of us that you want to travel, you want to, and you do want to do other things, you have that option of if you can afford it. Because I don't want to make assumptions about everybody being in here that you can afford all of the different higher ends of costs. But it is looking at that. I think that is a good option, especially an option that, and they bring in, they coordinate with the university because they have done many of the summer fine arts stuff, the musics and stuff like that. We've started, Ron Inouye started last Friday, and they do music. So that there's music there and a variety of options there. So that is an option that I think is a very viable one. We're looking at it. And that one of the things, they are the people that are telling me, it was so nice to get rid of all that stuff. And I don't have to mow the lawn anymore. And I don't have to worry about what the neighbor thinks about my flowers, And so it's been an interesting aspect because most of what the work I've done through the years has been with people that haven't had much of an income. So that aspect, the levels, and going back to the question about levels of care, and you have to be able in that building to manage your care and to not be, there are a few couples that have, one of the partners has dementia, and that, is a challenge, but it has worked in many of the cases. But if you have someone that's thinking of moving in there and has a dementia diagnosis, or that things are happening in their lives, it often doesn't work, and so they don't end up living there very often. So you have to have the backup, I think. So you need to have, for levels of care, most of like the Pioneer Home, it's based upon what your needs are and what you would need from a staff. And then and especially when you're looking at dementia care, if you're at risk for leaving the building, if you're at risk for, being aggressive towards other people, wandering, even if you don't lose the building, is always quite an upset or worry for the staff, because that does, and at the Pioneer Home, and I believe at Denali, because Denali is a full nursing care. They are not, like, oh, I think I'll go live there. It's you have to fit in the criteria to be able to qualify, and it's usually at a medical level of care where you would need that. And many times we did have people that would go from the Pioneer Home that would go there. And with the amount of services that we have for end-of-life services, people can pass just about anywhere you're at. So you can do it at home if you have, hospice comes in at the last, but, to be able to do the, pass at home, you have to still have yourself organized, in my mind, about how this is going to happen. It just doesn't. I mean, it can just happen, but it doesn't. Just.
So are you saying at the Pioneer Home that if you're at risk of doing any of those things, you wouldn't be able to stay?
Oh yes, they have. Pioneer Home has advanced dementia care.
Okay, maybe.
And it's lock area. They have a lock, and we had, I'm assuming it's all the same, but we had pendants that would trigger a door. Because your biggest terror in having services like that is that someone would slip out and it's happened in different locations all over where someone has slipped out and it's been cold and trying to get them back in or not being able to, or I have to say there's been many a time I've trotted down the road trying to get someone to come back home and them not wanting me beside them. But I mean, truly the care there is very good. And the private assisted living homes, there are, I think, and there are a good handful of them. And Beth has a full list of them, and she would be able to tell you because those beds change around. But if that's what you're looking at in your future, that would be the plan in my mind would be to go to the different facilities and start meeting people, especially if it's getting closer to when, because and there was a woman that lived with us at Raven who moved there, and they were from Delta, and they'd moved there, and he had dementia, and so they were able to manage there, but then it started getting more advanced, and so he ended up going into an assisted living home. And I just went to talk to her just to see how it was going. And what she told me was that for her, one of the things that's been hard is that, and this isn't a print on any or of them at all, but that all of them are like that. But there are frequently no activities. And so there's TV. And because in the past, when I first started in this business years back, or in this lifestyle of living that I've picked up, they did not have a lot of people that were trained to manage the dementia. And so, and many of the houses will have mixtures of ages too. So that becomes a real, it's harder for you. It would be harder for me and I mean, I know what I've seen. And so I think those are the kind of things I would advise you, especially if you're looking for your partner, your mom, your sister, or, if you're trying to figure out where you're going to go yourself. The one thing about the Pioneer Home is it does have the levels of care that allows you that. Right now, at what I was told at Timber Creek is that they do not, and I thought I'd never heard this term, someone seeking exit. And it was, we didn't call it that, but it was, and I'm kind of like, okay, so they want to get out, right? And yes, so they are not truly set up. The building is not alarmed. And those are the kind of things you want to look at when you're starting to look at dementia. And I'm not sure, they're give you their information and everything so you can see what the facility is, and it's beautiful. I thought, dang, I would have loved to have had that one.
I was told that if they fill everything they've got, they have it in mind that they could build an addition onto that toward dementia care possibly, but they want to fill and make sure they're going strong with everything else. It's my understanding, and I could be wrong, that Denali Center is the only skilled level nursing care facility. Pioneer Home no longer has that level of care, is that correct? I know they do non-skilled, which means you get a lot of personal support and that kind of thing, but if you truly need 24-hour nursing support and all those kinds of things. For instance, Timber Creek said they don't give medications. They can
Correct.
sit there with you and help you get it to you or whatever, but they're not administering medications. And I don't know if that's in all assisted livings or if that's just their policy. But back in the day, well, a long time ago, Pioneer Home had like at least the 3 levels of care where you could be independent or you could be
Right.
non-skilled nursing or skilled nursing, where you also had some rehab facilities and that kind of thing. And it's my understanding that right now, Denali Center is the only place in town that offers that skilled level, which for some of us may be important because that's the only level of care that Medicare is going to help pay for a little while. May not be long, may only be 6 weeks or something, but that generally the non-skilled level of care, nobody's going to help pay for that for you. Unless you have long-term care insurance that might cover some of that.
Right, and the long-term care insurance will go on for generally, depending on what policy you buy. Because there's 3 policies within the state unless they've changed it. And those are the ones that would give you the different levels of care. The Pioneer Home still does have skilled, they have skilled, but it is not a Medicare billable one. So what you're looking at, when you're looking at, Mike, you might be able to help me somewhat in how it goes at, because we had many residents that would go over and stay at the Denali Center, but then came home to us if it depended upon what was going on. And I mean, the other thing, and I don't mean to be abrupt about this, people need to make decisions. We all need to make decisions about how do we want to end our lives. I mean, I think about this a lot. I've spent 30 plus years with people at the end of their life. And how do you want to end your life? I mean, do you want to be in skilled care? I mean, do you want to, or are you, and I mean, I won't go into all my contemplative thoughts about it, but I mean, to me, it's been, that is a big thought. So when I look at it and think about where our futures are in that, I don't think of skilled care. I mean, because for me, it's, yeah. Go ahead.
Well, so I'd like you to follow up on the Pioneer Home, and I can say that Julie's mother was in the Pioneer Home in Anchorage, and I think she would say had a very good experience as well, as good as it could be for elder care and the graduation that she asked you about.
Mm-hmm.
But my first mother-in-law saw back up 20 years ago, Karen Parr asked me to help her and everybody else in town to help her start Raven Landing. So that was her vision and the vision
Right.
of a few people. So thank you for coming in there and keeping that vision alive. Because my first mother-in-law lived there, and she did fine for a while, and then she had dementia, and then they paid an organization to have people come in and stay with her, and that worked for a while. I'm not sure that's within the rules, you might address that, but that's what her daughters did for her. And eventually, the Pioneer Home seemed to be for people that needed dementia memory care unavailable completely. And so thanks to Mr. Powers and the Greater Hospital Foundation that was looking forward and got the Denali Center going, she eventually ended there, and that's where she ended up at the end of her life. But going to the Pioneer Home didn't seem here in Fairbanks to be a possibility.
And what years was that?
She died last year, so
Oh.
within the last 18 months when she was in the Denali Center. And the sisters were not great about trying to get her off the inactive list to the active list, so that's part of the problem. But is the Pioneer Home really a possibility in Fairbanks if you have serious dementia?
I would want to say that it still is, but I would have to also say that because of the changes within how the state, and this is my opinion, has looked at, I mean, they've changed what the staff are paid. They no longer have a retirement. There's so many changes. They cannot get the staff to continue to provide the level of care that you need. And in Anchorage, it's a little different when you go to hire. In Palmer, it's a little different. You get along, but Fairbanks has struggled immensely with trying to find staff.
And I think that that's something for us to be aware of for any facility and for some of the other infrastructure things here.
Exactly.
We're not running as many buses. At one time I thought, oh, there's gonna be a bus out near my house, I can catch that bus. Well, that bus is long gone, that route's not there anymore. I have friends who are doing I forget the name of it, but where instead of sending your parent to the nursing home, you can take care of them at home and you can get some supports from FRA or from some other
Right.
places there in lieu of that. And they're having a heck of a time getting
Exactly.
help.
All of the groups that I've worked with through the years are struggling still immensely. And it's sad because I don't know what's going to happen with where we're at for nursing and for people being, aides.
I'm wondering what the infrastructure is for training people to be workers in these places. Is this something,
Well, it's still going on through the
is
university.
it on-the-job training, or is it?
No.
University?
Was when I went, and that was like 2 days, and you were thrown into it all. But with what it is here in the community, there still is, through the downtown center at the university, they are still doing nurses aid training, but they're like begging people to come in. And I mean, and I don't know where the pioneer wages are, and I didn't ask because, to me, I'm sorry, but it's heartbreaking. And so for me, it's been interesting because talking to them, at, like the downtown center, about getting, different aides to come in and stuff to train people, they're not getting the people. And then the wages, where the wages are at, because I mean, you're working night shift, you can't, or you're working, there's 3 different shifts and you're trying to get, people coming into the facilities. And I know Denali Center has struggled, but they have a wider group of people being, available to them, just even through the hospital and that. But to me, it's been very sad to kind of watch that, because I mean, the pioneer homes have always been a real, really nice thing, a proud thing that we've had for years. And so, and a lot of the 3 facilities along, 4 with Anchorage, they have a different influx of population coming in. And many of the primary staff are from the Philippines. And so it's changed kind of where, I mean, what the look of it is. And I don't know if I answered well enough for where you're at, what you were asking, but technically they still are, but I know that they haven't had the staff to be able to.
Exactly what they told us is we don't have enough staff. And so how long do you see in the future? And they said, well, we're not taking anybody. We don't know if we're gonna take anybody.
And what I know would happen, because it would happen, if you move in and you're like a level 2 or a level 3, you're going to get the first bed that's available within there, instead of waiting. And that would be how pretty much all of the homes would make that decision. So, and my thing is if you like writing letters, I think it's time to really blast. I mean, we have something that has been a treasure. And I mean, we have, and we were the second facility built. I think it's the second. And we, the buildings can't hold up that long. And we've had good maintenance on those buildings. It might look a little tacky. That's what the neighbor said, I can't put my mother there, Vickie. And I'm thinking, the carpet needs changing, and if you don't have staff to, you have 3 maintenance men for a building that size, so.
Is the Pioneer home in Palmer still also the VA?
It is, and by having that, because when we were looking at the VA and it was Knowles at that point, I think it was, we also were looking at, and Murkowski, she was right there pumping too, that we would all try to hold out, and that we would hold out and we would all become a partial veterans home. Yeah, that we would give, veterans would have that because it brought in federal funding. So.
Could you repeat the range, and I know you don't know the exact amounts, but you said a high and a low for, I think it was private assisted living homes. And can you repeat the range that you said?
The ranges, I think, they can make their own choices on them. And because this friend that I talked to, her husband has dementia. He's in a facility and she's paying, I think, $8,500 a month.
Okay, let's be realistic. I mean, most Americans don't even have money to retire on themselves. Who can afford that?
Well, what your options are, if you qualify and you don't have a pot of money somewhere, you can qualify for a Medicaid waiver. And that waiver, which is through Medicaid, that will pay for your care.
For what you can't afford.
For what you can't afford. And there's no putting the money away in a pocket somewhere or in a bank account. I mean, that's what you have to realize.
Resources, and then they help with the remaining.
The question I'm gonna ask is probably something I need to ask a lawyer, but what's the timeline on giving personal money to children?
Things are in a 5-year look back is what I understand. And I mean, and then, and my thing is if people have the money, do your best to, be generous when you're younger. And then for you to be able to use your funds to pay for as much as you can. I mean, and it's like instead of hoping you're holding this money I want, so-and-so to have, 30,000 or 10,000 or, those kind of things, I think, help your kid when they need to have buy a house in these days now or whatever, but, don't cut yourself short. But it is a 5-year look back, and I've seen people do that time and again and try to do it that way, and then oops, it didn't work out, and they end up not being able to get any services to help pay them for, until they got sicker than they thought, or the dementia moved faster than they thought, and they end up, in a 5-year period, less than, like at 3, it's like, I got 2 years left. I don't have, because it is a 5-year look back, and they're pretty good about looking back on that.
I would add, because it's the state that has to determine whether you're eligible for the Medicaid waiver.
Right.
The state is understaffed like everybody else. It's taking about a year
Oh, my Lord.
to go through the application and approval process, so you can't leave it too late. When you're ready for care, it does not mean that you get into care. So I just wanted to put that out.
Thank you, because that part I've been out of, but I'm not surprised because everything that I have heard about where services are at is in the point of not, that nobody has staff, and especially, I mean, if there was the grace of having a good retirement, even if your retirement wasn't real big, you had a retirement when you worked in a lot of locations that now is not available to a lot of people. So,
Yeah, I guess 60% of people in America don't own their homes, and don't have $1,000 in the bank. They go paycheck to paycheck. Folks in this room might be a little bit different. Also sounds like from what you're saying, elder care has in effect been defunded in Alaska, and maybe elsewhere. A lot of people don't end up at Denali Pioneer Home, Ravens. I knew Jim Moody well. Generation Alaska, died in his late 80s, had dementia the last few years. Unless you know, you really couldn't tell because he was a odd character anyway. But,
Yes.
he ended up in a room downtown with a blanket between him and the guy in the next bed for $6,000 a month. And unfortunately, he had a guy that had power of attorney over him, so in effect, he died of loneliness. The guy wouldn't let anybody see him. I knew Don Triplehorn well, same. And Tripp's family had Clay's father had the money, but he stayed in a very simple room, and I'm surprised he lasted as long as he did. He did have dementia badly. One thing that's going on now, I know more people with COVID now than ever. And it's not killing people, it's not filling up the ICU beds. But, and a lot of people had it before. I think Zink said in this room, 90% of the people that had COVID in Alaska were over 65 or 70 that died. And it's not necessarily herd immunity, it's culling the herd. So one question is, they exist, biometrics. How about putting biometrics up in Raven and other places? Somebody goes by and breathes on it, and it doesn't have to do a Dresden fire alarm, but just to let somebody know there's somebody in this room, because 40% of people with COVID are symptomatic. And I was at Costco the other day, and a gal wasn't wearing a mask, and I said, "You were wearing a mask last week." This gal takes a ticket, and she said, "Yeah, I had COVID last week." And this is the gal checking your ticket as you go out the door. I wish they could say that. Another thing is, despite my best efforts of playing Indiana Jones most of my life, I'm going to die in bed of cancer like a gentleman. Most of us will. There are tests now, that blood draws, that test for 50 or 60 different types of cancer. I tried the hospital work, the hospital, they weren't interested. But Rich Seifert was good enough to ask the CEO. She said she'd look into it. We'll see. It's a European thing. You can actually get these tests. And I'd like to see them available. It goes from $200 or $300 to $900 for the blood draw test. But they test a lot of cancers that can't be tested any other way. And I'd like to see the news miner earn money from something besides obits.
Let me just jump in on this real quick. So the question is about aging in what's available in Fairbanks, and I think Paulo's question is, do any of these facilities deal with biometrics or another level of diagnosis?
I would say not that I know of. Probably not, because I think, in many of the assisted living homes, it's basic. And some not even English speaking. So, or attempting to do English, so.
It's a problem at Ravens now, I know, because I've met with Cypress Group 50 times now. We stopped going because we didn't want to endanger people there. And a lot of people in Cypress Money Group either have COVID right now or just getting over it. And I got COVID in Sicily, and fortunately I tested before I was positive. I tested every day. I did not leave my room for 9 days. I didn't care if I died. I did care if I made somebody else sick. I wish more people thought like that, but sometimes we have to kind of enforce that reality. How about, is there a place for, on a lighter note, that if we want to downsize, we can donate a whole bunch of stuff for garage sales to support the food line or whatever. I'll donate 2,000 or 3,000 books right off.
Well, you've just hit on one of my favorite things, but I don't know of it, because I also would like to,
That would help, and come up with a program. You bring the stuff here, somebody with a big garage or a warehouse, dump it there, and then every 2 months have a great garage sale. And it would help us more than other people, because, I have a lot of stuff that I'd like to give away. And it's unfair, and I don't have kids, but it's unfair to say, let the kids take care of it. I took care of my mother's and stuff. That's not fair.
Very delicately, it's 8 o'clock, and out of respect for time, Are there other questions about aging in Fairbanks or this place?
My mother had Alzheimer's, and I'm hearing there is no place in Fairbanks to go at this time. Is that what you're saying?
Well, it sounds like it, definitely, but sounds like it. But the smaller assisted living homes are taking people with dementia. My thing is, too, is with the dementia we brought our mother up from Michigan and took care of her with us. And she went to the adult day program, and that worked out really well. But it was like we had about a year and a half with her here. And she was pretty advanced, but she was sweet and she was funny. And so you can manage on different levels of care if you're not dealing with, and she she had adult daycare and stuff. So, I mean, those services are still available, but still you've got, FRA doing different services, but they still are struggling too to find staff.
So, do you know how many beds Denali Center's dementia unit has? And what I heard you say, I think, about the Pioneer Homes one is they don't have any beds available due to staffing right now.
Well, they have that their unit is full, but theirs is by people. My thing is don't wait till because you can have mild dementia and you can be in the Pioneer home. So it's not like we're not, because we had pendants. We fancied up some little pendants to look like jewels to be able to keep people, and every one of us knew. I can tell you I have run down that road before chasing people. So
Do you need other medical care to qualify to be in Denali Center's dementia unit, or is having dementia enough?
I think dementia, I think it's 10 beds. Does that sound right, Kari?
No, not that, 25.
25 beds, okay.
I thought a criteria for Denali Center was that you had to have the doctor sign off that they didn't think you would live for another 6 months.
Oh, no, it doesn't need trauma, but you do need to have, need skilled nursing. I mean, it's a nursing facility, so it's not, yeah.
So just like, I'm looking at the clock, but if you could repeat that, we'll pick it up on the Zoom. I don't think, could you just repeat that part of that question?
Sorry, I think the question was, to be eligible for the dementia unit at Denali Center, do you have to be diagnosed as terminal within 6 months? And that is not the case. Someone else mentioned we do have a hospice program also through the hospital where you would live at home. To be eligible for the hospice program, you do need to have a doctor's projection of less than 6 months.
Beth Ray, how do we get in touch with her?
she's part of she presented last week, but she's part of the ADRC group here in town.
ADRC.
Aging and Disability Resource Center, and it's through the senior center.
All right.
They're actually moved into another building right now. They're behind in the garden, where the Garden Liquor strip mall is. They're in a little set of offices right in the back. And it's, I was able to find it, and she had she has more information than anyone that I know, just with what's going on. So.
Is Fairbanks an aging community?
I believe it is, especially if you feel like you would want to or could afford some of the different places, like going to Raven's Landing and making that, your spot. There's a lot of activities that go on there, and that is, one of the places. Because I look at what Timber Creek is, and they actually are, they're set up, the people that when I did the tour, there's some in there that are not, you know, don't, maybe need just a wee bit of care, maybe a little bit of direction, but mostly, most of the people that I saw, they were frail. So,
And I think it's real important to try and ask the questions for what you have in mind, because when I was over there, one of the things was, well, they weren't going to provide like Hoyer lift assistance if
Oh,
you
no.
had somebody who was bariatric or something like that and was gonna need some real support for transfers and that kind of thing. And so when I think of assisted living, I think about that kind of support could be very important for somebody. And just because you have a nice restaurant or type of
Yeah.
dining room where you can choose off a menu, that's pretty limited. The other thing I would say is, for myself, I would really look at how much space I have that's mine versus how much space is community space. Because when you start comparing Timber Creek and a private home assisted living, they may be similar, I don't know.
and I think you would find that a lot of the smaller homes that are like between 3 to, you know, I think 8 and 12 in some of them, I think you're looking at, sometimes it'll be a shared bedroom,
Okay.
or it used to be. I haven't been in a few of them in these years, but yeah.
Just being respectful